Esteban Ocon certainly is a driver that divides opinion, and obviously the big question surrounding Ocon is whether or not he is world championship material, and if he's at the level of the top two young drivers, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. And many people seem to be writing Ocon off. In fact, 77% of you who answered my Twitter poll said that you don't think Esteban Ocon is at the level of Verstappen or Leclerc. And this is quite telling. Obviously, my Twitter followers aren't exactly representative of every single Formula One fan, but I think in general, the opinion on Ocon, especially after his incident in Brazil 2018, I think the opinion on Ocon certainly has changed. He's no longer that young, fresh-faced rookie, that new kid on the block. He's now a driver that many people know that he's quite talented. He is definitely a solid midfield driver, but many people doubt that he can make that next step and eventually challenge for podiums, wins, and championships against all of the top drivers. So in this video, I am going to tell you why Ocon still has the potential to be a championship caliber driver and why you shouldn't count out the Frenchman just yet. So let's start off by having a quick look at Ocon's junior career. So what really stood out to me was his 2014 campaign when he competed in European Formula 3. He became champion this season, having a really impressive and consistent season, taking 9 wins and 15 pole positions. And he also beat the likes of some very, very good drivers, including Antonio Giovinazzi and Max Verstappen. So this impressive season by Ocon definitely launched him onto the motorsport scene. He got to be a bit more well known by people, in Formula 1 and other forms of motorsport. And then he followed this up by another championship winning season, this time in the GP3 series. He then made a move to touring cars in 2016 before finally getting his big break to Formula 1 in the last few races of 2016 with Manor. So Ocon's first full season in Formula 1 came with Force India, and he was partnered with Sergio Perez. So Ocon definitely had a really, really impressive rookie season. He was extremely consistent, and that is definitely one of Ocon's strengths as a driver, his consistency. He scored points on 18 out of the 20 races, only failing to score on 2 occasions, which is definitely really impressive. Especially considering that he's not even at a top team. He was in a midfield car that season. And what's even more impressive was the fact that as a rookie, he could come in as a rookie and pretty much match a top midfield driver in Sergio Perez, who is definitely way more experienced. And a lot of people argue that Perez deserves a seat at a top team. And if you compare Ocon's rookie season to that of Verstappen and Leclerc, I would say that Ocon had by far the most complete rookie season out of the 3 drivers. Maybe he didn't have, as many flashy wow moments as Verstappen and Leclerc, but he definitely was the most consistent and looked like a driver, an experienced driver that had been in the sport for 5+ years. He really was that consistent and mature. Like I said, his consistency is definitely one of his strengths, and he has a bunch of qualities that many young drivers lack. And Ocon definitely had the most challenging teammate. Charles Leclerc, he had to go up against Marcus Ericsson, who was mediocre at best, and Verstappen was going up against Carlos Sainz, who is quite good now, but he was also in his rookie season. So Ocon had to go against Sergio Perez, who is basically a top midfield driver and arguably a driver that deserves a top seat, and they were pretty much equal. He gave Perez a really good run for his money. He ultimately lost in the championship, but performance-wise, speed-wise, I'd say there really wasn't much to separate them. So 2018 definitely was an interesting year for both the drivers and the team. Obviously, you had Force India in a lot of financial trouble and getting bought out actually halfway through the season. And I really expected Ocon to give Perez, another really good challenge. And I thought there was also a good chance that Ocon could actually come out on top in that teammate battle. But Perez actually ended up outscoring Ocon by exactly the same margin as 2017, 13 points. So in terms of points, Perez definitely did better in the championship, but if you look at the individual races and qualifying, that tells quite a different story. So in 2018, Ocon really stepped it up on a Saturday, out qualifying Perez over the season 16-5, which is quite one-sided. And out of the 13 races that Ocon and Perez both finished, Ocon finished ahead of Perez 9 out of those 13 times. Ocon also had an average qualifying and finishing position that was one place higher than Perez. Now, I usually don't like to talk about luck and hypotheticals, but what I will say is that the main difference maker in the championship battle between Perez and Ocon was Perez's podium at Baku, which was a very crazy race. I mean, Perez definitely would not have gotten third place if Baku was not one of the craziest races of the last 5 years. So that definitely is something to bring up. Perez was on that podium because it was quite a crazy race, and that was pretty much a 15-point turnaround. If he just got a normal result like a 7th or 8th or 9th, the gap would definitely be quite a bit smaller than the 13 points. But looking ahead to 2020, we all know how much Esteban Ocon has to prove, and 2020 definitely is a big season for him. But this is by far the best opportunity that he's going to get. Obviously, Ocon is at Renault for 2020. He is a French driver at a French team, and a team with a fairly promising future. I mean, at best, they can be fighting for podiums and hopefully wins in the next few years, but at worst, they'll stay as a pretty solid midfield team. The ultimate goal for Ocon probably is to get a seat at Mercedes, but even if that doesn't work out, Renault still isn't a bad place to be in the long run. And then we have Ocon's teammate at Renault, Daniel Ricciardo. And this is going to be the ultimate test for Ocon. He is an even tougher opponent than Sergio Perez, but this is what Ocon will have to do if he wants to prove himself as a top driver. Let's look at Verstappen and Leclerc. Verstappen had his rookie season, he went against Ricciardo, eventually came out on top. We all know he's a top driver. Leclerc had his rookie season at Sauber, went to Ferrari, beat Sebastian Vettel. We know he is a top driver. Now, Ocon has to go to Renault, beat Ricciardo, and prove that he is a top driver. If he does, then I really think it will increase his chances at that coveted Mercedes seat. I mean, if I'm Toto Wolff, if I can have a young driver in Esteban Ocon who's capable of beating a top driver in Daniel Ricciardo, I would almost certainly replace him with Bottas once Bottas' contract is up. Now, saying it is one thing, but actually being able to beat a driver of Daniel Ricciardo's caliber is another. However, Esteban Ocon is someone who you do not want to underestimate. He is a young driver hungry for success and has his sights set on a seat at a top team. And in my opinion, he still has the potential to be a future world champion. After all, Ocon has it all to gain, but if you think about it, not really much to lose. I mean, even if he doesn't get that coveted Mercedes seat, he's still at Renault, which is a pretty solid team with a seemingly bright future ahead of them. And if Ricciardo decides to jump ship, he can find himself number 1 at Renault, which is still a pretty good situation. The odds definitely are stacked against Ocon, and if you ask me, I still think that Ricciardo probably has a better chance of winning this teammate battle. However, I don't know for sure. No one really knows for sure, but one thing that I do know for sure is that it's going to be close. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video about Esteban Ocon. So that's my part done, but what I really want to hear is your thoughts about Esteban Ocon. Do you think he's world championship material? Do you think he deserves the Mercedes seat? Who do you think is going to win that Renault teammate battle in the 2020 season? I'm really excited to hear all of your thoughts in the comments section below. And yeah, if you made it to this part of the video, clearly you like something I'm doing. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Kids Love F1, which is on the road to 1,000, hopefully by the end of this year. Let's see if we can do it. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.